Hey, Dr. Paul, just want to remind you of the sequence of the personal injury attorney marketing campaign and sales process. There's a sales process. And when you short circuit it, it doesn't work. It creates a defensive reaction. There's no referrals. So remember, the process is number one. Remember, the vast majority of attorneys don't even think they need a chiropractor. Okay. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to create what's called a target market. Well, there's some attorneys, characteristics with demographics, psychographics, and gateways that are just easier to communicate with and do business with. So we teach that. So there's about three major different categories. So you want to start with the category that's the easiest. Then we do what's called a marketing campaign. We don't just bust in and try to get all the referrals. I always say it's like you don't try to get married on the first date. And there's so many chiropractors that don't know the steps of creating business, especially if you're talking about personal injury attorney referrals. I actually had a client that sent out 500 postcards, and he was mad that he didn't get any referrals. He was totally ignorant of the process. So the next step is what's called the campaign. And the campaign is multiple contacts, and there's only one goal for that campaign. It's to stir awareness, interest, and desire. That's it. It's not to create referrals, to get them to the presentation. Now, that's typically a four-step process. So we have the target market, and then there's a minimum of a four-step process. Remember why? Because we buy in a four-step process. Buy also includes creating referrals. So it's presentation, obstacles, it's needs analysis, presentation, obstacles, close. That's how we buy everything, or even referrals. You violate that, you create a defensive reaction. So at the bare minimum, there should be four contacts, just so you're fitting into the normal psychological process and not violating that. And four is the minimum. And so that's why typically we'll do the introduction. That's one. So we'll stir the awareness and interest. Then we'll go to the introduction. That's one. Then we'll have them watch some basic information. We'll give them basic information that stirs their awareness and interest even more. Then we'll come back to confirm that information. Then that will lead to setting up the fourth contact, which is the presentation. That's the bare minimum that should happen. And it's even better if there's more contacts in between with problem solution information. That's even better. Multiple contacts help increase trust and confidence and decrease defenses and awareness. And especially if the topic is problem solution, the communication is talking about their problem, because we all want somebody to solve our problems or help us solve our problems. So this is exactly the way it should be. And then that gets to the present. And then, of course, the presentation has to be what's called an educational sales presentation. And that's very specific. And there's a big difference between content, education, and sales. There's a huge difference. And the goal is to do both, because if you just give content, and this happens all the time with doctors, they'll go to an attorney and they'll do their thing and walk out and get no referrals. And they wonder why. It's because they don't know educational sales. That's why. They didn't know how to establish need with the attorney. Well, when we walk out from the attorney, we show them how they're easily losing over $250,000 a year by not working with us. It's very easy to show that with what we do. Well, they want to stop losing $250,000 or more a year. So immediately we get their referrals to stop it. So having said that, okay, so now there's a need. So what's the next step? Well, they still don't have credibility and authority in you. So the next step is we'll offer them 2 free case analysis. In other words, we'll evaluate 2 of their cases to see what documentation is missing that's going to hurt or limit their injury award. Because up to this time, they didn't know how much was missing from all the doctors. Well, by the time they finished with our presentation, they now realize that up to 70% of the documentation wasn't even done. And the doctor didn't even know it. And so the attorney didn't even know it. And so Now we have to do the case analysis. We do the first one, and then we make a narrative report and bring it back. Now, when we do that, that's what establishes absolute credibility and authority. And usually 50% of the time, they ask us to be their expert witness for all their other cases. This is literally how we transform the attorney from what's called unconscious incompetence, where he doesn't even think he needs you, to now he needs you for every case. See, this is how it works. And then you do the second one to confirm it. A lot of times you don't even have to do the second one, but we do the second one to confirm the authority and credibility. Then from there, what should happen? That's usually when the referrals start coming out. We start getting the referrals. And then from there, the marketing should continue with once a week, they should be getting a problem solution. What's a common problem they're dealing with? And we give the solution of how we eliminate that problem. They should be getting that either in a text or an email or a video. That should just be once a week. And then once a month, they should be getting a phone call saying, hey, is there any clients that I can help you with that you're having trouble with? That keeps high awareness, keeps you in the loop, and you're continually educating them of the value that you bring to the table. You've got to bring value to the table. You can't just create a high bill. And value to the table means good documentation to support their injury award. That's what value is to an attorney. Not that attorney has to ask you to cut your bill. That's the number one sign that your documentation is bad. They're getting less than a 2-to-1 injury award because you got bad documentation and a high bill. That's the clue right there. So now the next step is every quarter, every 3 months on like a Thursday night, there should be a happy hour. You just serve hors d'oeuvres for all your attorneys and invite new attorneys. And then there's a 20-minute presentation on one of the personal injury topics, problem solution. So you identify the problem, and we already know what these are, and we already know the solutions. So that's what happens then. So you create more attorneys, and you magnify the relationship with your existing attorneys. And then once a year, you do the annual personal injury seminar only on a Saturday, even if it's only Saturday morning, if you're only going to do it for, say, 4 hours on a Saturday morning. And it's named after you. So it's the Dr. X, personal injury seminar. That creates authority. And then you invite your other team players. You invite your orthopedist to come and speak, your pain management doctor to come and give, 10 minutes of what he does. And it's only 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, something like that, of them just coming to share what they do and how they help, and how they help with the whole program. That's when you really create authority. When you're given the personal injury seminar, that's when you really get authority for the whole county and all the attorneys. But that's the whole step of creating a multi-million-dollar personal injury practice. That's it. It does take knowledge. It does take skill. It does take effort. Yes, it does. But it's the single most lucrative marketing you can do in chiropractic, period, bar none. You can take as little as 3 attorneys referring you 2 cases a month, at $5,000 a case average. That's $15,000. That's $180,000 a year just from 3 attorneys. If you had 4, that's $250,000, just like that, from only 4 attorneys referring you 2 cases a month. That's how fast it goes. You're not going to get that from Facebook pay-per-click, and you're not going to get it from Groupon. So that's the exact system. So again, those are the steps you put in place. You learn them, you put them in place, and that's what creates tremendous amount of referrals, growth, revenue, quality of lifestyle, help a lot of people, and help your patients who are victims being supported in their due and just high value injury awards. That's how it should work. So again, if you're interested in implementing that in your practice, give me a call, Dr. Paul. Again, I've opened 77 offices in 20 states. You can check us out at chiropracticpersonalinjurymarketing.com. That's the system. You've got to get the system down, and you got to apply it. And then immediately it started. And that's why 92% of our clients, by the way, increased their business over $100,000 in 90 days. give me a call if you want to implement that system into your practice. That's actually a multi-million-dollar system. Give me a call. Again, I'm Dr. Paul, chiropracticpersonalinjurymarketing.com.